With so many voices and so many opinions, there are two that stand out. Ken Romero and Dr. John. Weekday afternoons at 5 on NewsTalk 96.5 KPEL.
Starting off, what steps would you take to cut the $1.6 billion budget deficit that we've got?
Well, it's a huge deficit, Ken, including from last year. We still have some deficit and projected into the new year. I said months ago I would immediately call a special legislative session focused exclusively on stabilizing the budget through real spending and budget reform first, and also tax reform. I would start on the spending side, and that's the biggest difference between John Bel Edwards and me. He doesn't talk about spending ever. He goes immediately to taxes, revenue, taxes, more. We need to start on the spending side and tighten our belts in a responsible way. Structurally, we need to, first of all, undedicate some areas of the budget so we can get at spending there that we simply can't afford. All of those protections and dedications of many areas of the budget is the single biggest structural reason higher ed is always cut disproportionately, because it is not protected. So we need to undedicate some of those areas and roll up our sleeves and get into the nitty-gritty of what we should support and what we should not. I'll give you some examples of things we need to cut.
Okay. In
Louisiana, we have 10,800 state-owned cars. 10,800. It costs the state taxpayer $232 million. Thousands of those are unnecessary, and we can do without them. We have billions of dollars of outside consulting contracts. Some help reform state government and save us money. Most do not. Many are for goods and services we don't need and we can't afford. Others are for things that we have state employees who are supposed to be doing that. We're paying state employees to do that. Pretty nice gig if you can get a paycheck and farm out your work to somebody else. We can't afford that, and I'm going to put an end to that. So those are some examples on the spending side. But there's a fundamental difference, and that's I'm going to start there. John Bel Edwards always talks about taxes, revenue. That's directly where he's going. That's going to hit Louisiana middle-class families.
Well, Senator, moving on to the next topic, you mentioned education, but what are your thoughts on charter schools here in Louisiana?
Yeah, another huge difference between me and John Bel Edwards. I support charter schools. Of course, there need to be proper rules and regulations and even playing field, but I support charter schools because it often provides really excellent schools and education, and it gives parents and kids more choice. And I think the more choices we can give parents, particularly low-income parents who can't buy choice. I mean, my family's pretty well off, and we can afford to send our kids to Catholic school, and that's important to us. Other families don't have that choice in terms of their income. And so I think choice and competition is a key, not the only one, but a key to improving education results. John Bel Edwards has a clear record of opposing charters, of opposing voucher scholarships, of opposing really all types of choice. And he's on record as being for cutting back on those options.
Senator David Vitter is our guest today on Geaux Acadiana, and of course this call was pre-recorded, so we can't open the phones for questions, but we have a few more to ask. Senator, do you think you would cut funding to Planned Parenthood, especially in light of the recent videos?
Absolutely, and I said that months ago, and more importantly, I've fought federal funding to Planned Parenthood for years because they're the biggest abortion mill in the country. They perform almost 1,300,000 abortions every year. It's horrific, and get hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars at the same time. So I've led that fight for years. John Bel Edwards has never said boo about that or done anything about that. I've said I would cut Louisiana contracts and ties to Planned Parenthood, and I would do everything within my power as governor to do that. John Bel Edwards has pledged nothing like that. I think it's for those reasons that I have the endorsement of National Right to Life and Louisiana Right to Life. I have a lifetime 100% voting record with them, and I think they recognize that I not only have the right votes, I'm an aggressive leader in that regard, and those are mainstream Louisiana values.
Senator, you mentioned endorsements in this statement, and you've received many endorsements before the primary election.
Yeah.
Do you expect to receive endorsements from the unsuccessful gubernatorial candidates?
Well, I'm certainly reaching out to them, and I'm very hopeful. And perhaps even more importantly, I'm reaching out to their voters. I want the support of all of those folks who voted for or considered voting for Scott Angel and Jay Darden. And I think when they look at my political record and my votes and how I would lead the state versus John Bel Edwards' votes and how he would lead the state, it's going to be the difference between a Louisiana conservative on the one hand, that's me, and a pro-Obama liberal. And those Angel and Darden voters have way much more in common with me than with John Bel Edwards. So I'm very, very hopeful that runoff discussion will prove that, will earn those votes. But I'm not going to take anything for granted. I'm going to work to earn that support and earn those votes every step of the way.
Senator, it's understood that negative campaign ads work, and of course they're disliked by voters. That's what they all complain about. But do you think negative campaign ads work by increasing voter apathy, thus reducing voters to just committed members of either party?
Well, Ken, they might. In this past primary election, we had a really low turnout, and that was very disappointing. We have to do better. My runoff campaign is going to be focused on the two things I mentioned: our positive vision for the future and our detailed plan mapping out exactly how we get there. That's all positive. And then a clear contrast and a legitimate contrast between where I would lead the state as a Louisiana conservative versus where John Bel Edwards would lead the state as a pro-Obama liberal. That's going to be based on facts and votes. And I think that's a very legitimate contrast and an important part of the discussion.
Senator, it's been great having you on, and we hope to talk to you again between now and Election Day in November. Thanks again for joining us. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, Ken. I look forward to many more visits, both before the election and after.